Coping with COVID and In It Together SC present Wellness Wednesday, brought to you by the Diabetes Action Council of South Carolina and DHEC's Division of Diabetes and Heart Disease Management.
Coping with COVID with Tre Tailor.
Hey there, happy Wednesday. Good Wednesday afternoon to you. I'm Tre Tailor and SC DHEC, In It Together SC, and the Diabetes Action Council of South Carolina present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. Today, we're dealing with childhood obesity, why it's become such a problem and what we can do about it. Dr. Jennifer Rice joins us to answer those questions. Dr. Rice, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We're also going to be joined by Joy Price with the Snap Ed Department at DHEC. And then we'll hear from Karen Alexander. She has an innovative program to help kids understand obesity, what they can do about it, and help make healthy lifestyle changes. Thank you, Kay. We appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Childhood obesity is what we're coping with, and we're going to come right back and do that next. But first, your COVID community updates. South Carolina lawmakers will meet again next week about abortion in the state, this time without time allotted for the public to speak. Now, the meeting will be held next Tuesday at noon. Planned Parenthood protested at the State House before last week's meeting. Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune will be the first African-American person to have a state commissioned statue in the National Statuary Hall. The influential city civil rights icon, educator, author, philanthropist, humanitarian, and civil rights activist is being honored as we speak. And Eric Martin is the new head basketball coach at South Carolina State University. The school announced that the former assistant coach for West Virginia is a rising star in the coaching world after being named the top 25 college basketball assistants ready to lead their own program and a 2020 30 coaches to watch. SCDHEC has your most up-to-date list of times, dates, and location for COVID testing and vaccinations in and around South Carolina. Visit scdhec.gov for more information. Now, throughout the show, you will see scrolling at the bottom of the screen all of the testing sites that are open and available in the state of South Carolina and beyond, and also all types of other resources available. You'll also see information about where to get 5 free rapid self-tests by logging on to covidtest.gov. Now, even if you've gotten your first round of tests, you can email them again and get another set of tests. Also, information about COVID vaccines and testing for veterans, that's happening at the VA. And several retail outlets in and around South Carolina also offer COVID tests and vaccines and N93 masks, including Kroger pharmacies, CVS, that includes the CVSs that are in Target stores, and also Walgreens. Now, the Comet bus system in Columbia, South Carolina also is having free vaccination, and you can get a free ride to get your COVID vaccination by catching the Comet. Now, if you're having a challenge making your COVID vaccine or test appointment, you can get online registration help at Get Set Up. Now, there are several other resources available, including financial resources that also will be scrolling at the bottom of the screen. Going to mention FEMA is continuing their COVID funeral reimbursement if you lost a loved one due to COVID. You see the information on the screen. SC Bar Association and SC Legal Services has a toll-free number and website for rental and mortgage help. Lexington County has a bill assistance program. SC Housing and Dominion Energy have a rental and utilities assistance program. And if you or someone you know is having a challenge coping with COVID, they can call the SC Department of Mental Health 24-hour assistance line entitled SC Hopes. In It Together SC and the Diabetes Action Council present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. I'm Tre Tailor. Hey, don't forget, we are streaming live on the In It Together Facebook page and YouTube channel. Please go over there, hit like and share and follow. Get notifications as to when we go live every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Wellness Wednesday. Plus, I'm telling you, that Facebook page has so many great resources available on how to live a healthy lifestyle, healthy tips for eating, exercising, and also where you can find a diabetes prevention program and a diabetes support group. They're meeting both virtually and in person. So you can find one throughout the state that will fit you. Go over there, hit like and share and follow on both their YouTube channel and also their Facebook page. We're also streaming live on the home of Coping with COVID and Coping with Tre Tailor That's the Tailor Made Production page on Facebook. Please go over there, hit like and share and follow, get notifications. Once again, when we go live every Wednesday with Wellness Wednesday, and also Thursday and Friday on Coping with Tre Tailor, because you know what? We'll always be coping with something or another, and we're here to help you get through it. We're also streaming live on the YouTube channel. Now, there we've got almost 3 years of interviews, resources, and information available on the YouTube channel. We also have a presence on Twitter and also on Instagram. I'm Tre Tailor, and thank you so much for joining us for Wellness Wednesday from In It Together SC and the Diabetes Action Council. Today, we're coping with childhood obesity. It is a growing epidemic in the United States with over, get this, 14 million children under age 10 being affected every single year. Why? And what is childhood obesity and how can we help our kids? Dr. Jennifer Rice, nurse practitioner, joins us to help answer those questions. Thank you so much, Dr. Rice, for joining us again today. We appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So tell us, what exactly is childhood obesity?
So you hear a lot of people will say, oh, well, my baby just has some baby fat. But childhood obesity is more than just baby fat. And unfortunately, that baby fat actually turns into adult fat. So it's when a child is actually, for height for weight, is heavier than what's expected for their age. So the kids, you have a lot of people when you go to your provider's office, you'll talk about BMI, the body mass index. So children are rated on a different chart. So basically, they have percentages versus an actual number. And anything above 85% for a child is considered overweight or obese. The problem with that is a lot of times, especially with genetics, and of course our, Black and brown children are at higher risk for obesity because, basically on those scales, our bones do technically weigh heavier.
Really? So
Yes.
there really is such a thing as big bones. See, I
There
thought all
really is.
bones were created equal. They're not.
No, our bones are actually heavier. So, and we typically have a larger muscle mass. For BMI, so a lot of my African American patients, if they're borderline for adults, 25 or 30, you have to look at the body composition because a 30 for some of my male African American patients are different than 30 for some of my white female patients. So
Right.
yes, our bones are heavier.
Wow, that's very interesting. When can we start recognizing, or when does medicine start determining if a child is either obese or going into obesity? Because the numbers that I mentioned were kids under 10 years old.
Right. And that's typically when the most attention is paid. But, we're plotting kids on a chart from 2 weeks old as far as height for weight. But we really start paying attention to it when they're 2. And that's really, it's just a lot of parent education, because you have some parents that think just because everyone in the family is big, that they expect the kid to be big. And it's like, well, yes, genetics has a part of it, but it also is what we're feeding our kids. So if you're putting soda in a bottle for your baby or sweet tea or something like that, then yes, your child is going to gain weight, a lot faster. And the kids are a lot more sedentary now. So they're sitting down and playing video games instead of getting up and getting outside. But these younger kids, we're seeing them younger and younger with type 2 diabetes, with high cholesterol, with high blood pressure. And you're talking kids 10 and up. So now we routinely screen those kids at that age. And then, of course, once they are gaining weight quicker, for our young girls, they're starting their periods earlier and earlier. You have some girls starting as early as 8 years old, but that extra weight, contributes to that. And if a kid is heavy when they're, in their childhood, the likelihood that they're overweight or obese when they're adults is double.
Yeah, you make so many great points, Dr. Rice, and I want to piggyback on a couple of them. One, I started my period when I was 9, and I was fat, but obviously that was a long time ago. But you made a good point about children are eating different types of food now. a lot of fast food, And I guess that's, so many different reasons: food deserts, availability, quickness, all types of things. But the other thing is lack of activity. Kids are exercising their thumbs
Right.
now.
Right. They're exercising their thumbs. And then when they're sitting around, they're drinking their soda or they're eating their, 4 for $4 from Wendy's because it's cheap. It's quick for the parents, who are on the go. But you combine that and it's terrible. These kids are having joint pain because, they're too heavy. I see these little kids and they're, walking around and, curves are great, but extra curves also adds extra pressure on the joints. So,
Wow.
You have these kids that are shortening their lifespan. I mean, when you're born brown, you already have a shorter lifespan, but then you add obesity to it. And when you think about the rates of diabetes, heart disease, so heart attack, stroke, arthritis, acid reflux, sleep apnea, all of those things are related to obesity, and you see young kids with a lot of these problems.
Yeah. In It Together SC and the Diabetes Action Council present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. I'm Tre Tailor. Dr. Jennifer Rice joins us today because we are coping with childhood obesity. So you talked about why, obviously it's becoming such a big problem and what's going on. But how can we start telling if a child is actually obese as opposed to just a little chubby?
And that's where you have a fine line, because I had plenty of parents that, and I would never, ever use the word fat because that's just is the ugly word.
Yeah.
But even when you tell a parent that height for weight, their child is higher than the, expected limits, they typically do get upset, and I've seen on social media, people, will say, I took my kid to the pediatrician and they told me my child was too heavy. I'll never go see them again. And people get mad at us for doing our job, but it's like, no, I'm trying to let you know.
Yeah, now. Yeah.
Yes, while you could control this. And, yes, your kid might only want to eat macaroni and cheese and French fries, but what are you giving your kid? So if you're offering your child a lot of, because we've created these picky eaters, back in my day, I had to eat what my grandma fixed. There was no going to McDonald's, but now, the mac and cheese is, so many children, the parents will come in and say chips, mac and cheese, pizza, chicken tenders. And that's about their entire diet. But it's because the parents provide that for them. And I promise you, your kid will not starve themselves. I've tried to talk to children about healthy nutrition, and I've had teenagers that didn't really understand what a vegetable was. So, it first comes from us showing that example to our kids. So if we're sitting around, drinking Coke and eating French fries all the time, our kids are going to do the same thing. If we're frying all of our food, that's what our kids are going to expect. So eating healthy is not a white thing to do. I mean, you hear a lot of people that culturally say, well, I'm not going to eat like a bird because I don't want to be skinny. It's not about being skinny. It really is about,
being healthy.
Yes, eating to actually live instead of eating to dig yourself a grave a little bit earlier.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, because I'm raising two, and their palates are, I guess, created or tuned in or whatever. I'm sure you know the technical term, based on what you give them. Isabel was almost 1 when I got her, and Julius was 3, and look, Isabel loves macaroni and cheese, but they also love raw carrots. They love apples. They love oranges. They love grapes. You know, and because I'm a vegetarian, I introduce, and they drink water primarily, only drink water. So and it's so interesting because I noticed they had a friend that came to the house, and we were eating dark chocolate almonds, just a couple. And the little boy was like, that was just the nastiest thing to him. And I'm like, how do you not like a dark chocolate almond? But it was just, maybe it was the nuts, maybe it was a dark chocolate. I don't know. But it was so interesting that even as a baby or child, their palates are trained, I guess, Dr. Rice, to accept different things. Am I saying it the correct way?
Yes, absolutely. And then, I would have parents that say, well, they won't eat that. And I'm like, you've got to give a child something 5 different times before they can determine if they don't like it. And some kids do have texture issues,
Yeah.
but you can't just feed it to them one time because kids are funny anyway. So, one day they'll like something and the next day they won't.
Yeah.
You got to keep trying it. And I would tell parents, don't become a short order cook. If you're going to make one meal, don't make another meal for your child. One meal for the family.
Yeah, so. I'm like you. I got these children, but I'm an old school mama. I'm cooking one time and you either eat it or listen, right. I remember a time when you eat it for dinner or you'll eat it for breakfast.
Right. And these kids, they don't understand that. Or, but I mean, how many meals I'm not saying to be like mommy dearest and, make them eat it for 2 or 3 days.
Right.
But no, I mean, the kids will eat what.
Right. And we've got to be parents. We've got to be adults. We've got to, not be beholding to these children and have them dictate what. Listen, I got a big issue with what the children listen to. Okay, that's your radio. But girl, I digress.
But it also, it does start with nutrition because if, you've got these kids that are, for one, drinking soda all day and then they can't rest well at night.
Right.
And then they're moody. You've got their blood sugars high. They've got diabetes. They're sluggish. They're not doing stuff. It really honestly causes a lot of other problems because, they're not as active because they don't feel good. But you don't realize you don't feel good until you take away all that junk that you put in your body.
And I want to talk about that because, of course, we're sponsored by the Diabetes Action Council and In It Together SC. So these children can get diabetes, high blood pressure, kids.
Yes.
So one, how is it treated if a child has these conditions and can they recover from them?
So it is definitely, you can recover from it, but it takes a lot of work. And that's a lot of dedication for a child to make. You have these children that have the type 1 diabetes, which is not diet, related. They have to control it. But the same thing should be, pressed for a child that does develop type 2 diabetes. So those children, and typically I see it a lot more so in females, teenage females, just because they grow a little bit quicker, and they're the ones that tend to seek healthcare more so than the males. But they're placed on diabetic medication just like an adult is. We ask them to check their blood sugars just like we do for adults. I have teenagers that have to take blood pressure medication, but when you have diabetes, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and as a teenager, all you're doing is basically making lots of fat deposits around the heart, which of course is going to shorten their lifespan, puts you at a higher risk for heart attack and stroke. And so you see people in their 30s, 40s that are having heart attacks and strokes. So, it's reversible.
Right. And we also see a lot of kids, especially these boys that are athletes that are, falling out on the football field, the basketball court. And we've got to be more conscientious. And, just like I say about your health as adults, you've got to love yourself more than you love fried chicken. We've got to love our kids enough to make sure they make the right choices. But like you said, Dr. Rice, it takes us. Your child is not going to eat what you're not eating.
Right.
And if we can't do it for ourselves, good grief, can we not do it for our kids? Right. Daniel Lake says, thank you, Dr. Rice, for so much valuable information. Daniel, thank you so much for watching. Dr. Jennifer Rice joins us as we are coping today with childhood obesity. Before we go, I want to ask you a couple of things, because Joy Price with DHEC is going to join us a little bit later on in the program to talk about how and what to introduce to kids to keep them, to help them eat right. But How can kids deal with the peer pressure of one being different, whether it's overweight, whether it's if they do choose to eat differently, now you're the odd man out because you're eating funny, you know what I mean? And to prevent them from eating the sugary snacks. I mean, I'll tell you a quick story. Again, Julius was maybe 4, and it was almost like every day at school it was somebody's birthday, so that was cupcakes, or it was some kind of celebration, and that was a bag of candy or cookies. And I was like, we can't have this every week. We just can't. So then they would give it to everybody else, but not him. So now he's looking like the odd man out. He's sitting up there crying as a little boy. So it's hard. It's hard. So help the kids and help the parents. Well, what do you say? What?
It's definitely tough. I mean, especially with the last 2 years, kids had access to free lunch in all the schools, which honestly probably was a big difference maker for a lot of these kids, because they actually had access to, a hot meal every single day, fruits and vegetables. So hopefully more children tried more things, because they actually had, I know my own children, because I wasn't paying for school lunch every single day, and they would come home and tell me, certain things that they liked. And then, I'd start cooking it more because, they like that stuff. But it is hard. But the kids that do suffer from obesity tend to get bullied more.
Yeah.
Then you're going to get bullied if you're the kid that's sitting at the table with raw carrots and your tofu and your grapes, instead of sitting there with your Lunchable with the hot dog. So it's tough. But that's where it comes from us, that support from parents, explaining why we're doing this. We're not doing this to be a certain size. We're doing this to be healthy, so we can think better, we can concentrate better in school. So it's really just reinforcing that at home versus, telling kids, well, we can't eat that, so you won't die young, obviously. But, a lot of parents, they love their children. All parents love their kids. But sometimes we love our kids too much to enable what they want versus what's good for them. So just like you said, their music choice, but I could control what is bought in the house and what is put in your lunch bag and what snacks you have. So but we have to model that behavior so they will understand that that's normal.
Danielle has a question, Dr. Rice, before we let you go. She wants to know, what are the symptoms of type 2 diabetes in both adults and children? Thank you, Danielle, for your question.
So in both adults and children, a lot of times people will have blurry vision, a lot of fatigue. Some people will have frequent urination, thirsty, more usual than often. Some people will actually, their diabetes is pretty advanced, and they'll have numbness and tingling in their hands or feet. So those are some of the routine things. I encourage everyone, if you don't, especially over the age of 40, make sure that you're having your annual physicals. And for kids, most insurance plans do offer no cost once a year wellness visits. And a lot of times when the vaccines stop, at 4, a lot of parents forget about those yearly visits, but that's a chance to just make sure that your child is on target and to monitor those things. So if you have any concerns about your child's weight, or if their weight for height is appropriate, absolutely utilize that insurance and bring them in for a wellness visit.
Yeah, Dr. Jennifer Rice is a nurse practitioner. She practices in Lexington, South Carolina. You can see her information on the screen. Please contact her or hit her up on social media for more information. Dr. Rice, thank you so much for joining us today on Wellness Wednesday from In It Together SC and the Diabetes Action Council. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Keep drinking your water.
Yes, girl. Former teacher Karen Alexander joins us. Her global nonprofit, the Auntie Karen Foundation, hosts several events and initiatives for children, one being Gordon's Garden. It's a puppet show and garden initiative which helps kids understand obesity and helps them live a healthy lifestyle. Let's take a little bit a look at Gordon's Garden.
Jamaican yams, healthy living all day long. Jamaican yams, spreading love with every song. We're Jamaican yams.
It is Monday morning at the Yam household and Yolanda prepares the children for school. She has a tough time waking them up since they stayed up extra late last night. They always do when Maya, her brother Whipper, and his best friend Gordon get together. Gordon's parents are out of town, so he's spending the week with the Yam family. Whipper's mom Yolanda notices that Gordon does not seem like himself today. He has been a bit sluggish lately and has been eating everything that he could get his hands on. She wonders what's wrong with him and hopes that it is nothing serious. But this day is about to take an interesting turn.
Gordon was sent to the nurse's office by his math teacher, Mr. Eddowes. The nurse has spoken to Gordon's parents over the phone. They gave Yolanda permission to help Gordon through the examination. Recess at school the next day. Gordon is sitting quietly away from the rest of his friends. They try to get him to play, but he's still tired and really sad. He sniffles a little. He hears humming. It's Shelby dancing over to his side.
Hey, Gordon.
Hey, Shelby.
What's wrong? Are you okay? It's okay, Gordon. Don't cry. It can't be that bad.
It is that bad. I'm gonna die.
What? What do you mean you're gonna die?
I found out yesterday that I have pre-diabetes. I'm gonna die.
Oh, Gordon, you're not gonna die.
How do you know?
I have type 1 diabetes. Do I look like I'm gonna die?
All right. So that's a little snippet of a typical episode of Gordon's Garden. Again, Karen Alexander joins us. Karen, why was this important for you to tell the story from a kid's perspective?
Well, I grew up with a family and everybody you talked to had sugar. There were people that were losing limbs, etc. And I wanted to create something that was fun and engaging and not intimidating. And so Gordon is a part of a whole family of characters, the Jamaican Yams, and their whole mission is healthy living, physical, mental, and spiritual health for kids. And I actually went to Palmetto Children's Hospital, and they're the ones who suggested using these characters to help tell the story.
Awesome. Awesome. So how do you utilize Gordon to help kids? How do you utilize the puppet show and the puppets? Because I know it's not only a show, you actually have puppets. I meant to bring my Gordon in here, but he's somewhere.
Well, I actually have a picture of, if she'll allow me to share my screen, I have a picture of all the different types of Gordons.
Okay. All right. Yeah, there you go.
So Gordon started out as just a drawing, but now he is the puppet that you saw in the video, but he's also a hand puppet and an oversized character. And what we do with the oversized character is we go to schools and places like Adventure, and Gordon has a special dance. And his whole objective is to teach kids healthy eating habits, healthy moves, and they teach Gordon. So Gordon has a dance. Gordon has a smoothie that we make for kids. And we also have an initiative called Gordon's Garden, where we partner up with schools and churches. We put raised bed gardens in those areas.
Let's talk a little bit about Gordon's Garden, because that was the thing I was going to ask next. How are kids reacting to being able to grow their own fruits and vegetables?
So when we go work with the school, it's really exciting to see when they harvest, because usually they're doing things like cucumbers and lettuce. And so they're making salads from things that they've made. And it's so exciting to see, oh my God, I made this. This came from my garden. And we also discovered that when we work with the schools, the teachers are excited to have just a fun way to introduce healthy eating.
Yeah. So how are kids reacting?
Oh, very positive.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it exciting for them to see something grow from a seedling or a seed to a whole plant that they can eat?
Yeah, I mean, that part's exciting. And they also, because they're learning about different types of things, like it's amazing how many kids have never heard of a smoothie before.
Oh, wow.
And then they're introducing their parents to the concept of making smoothies.
Yeah. Yeah. Are kids becoming more open to eating different types of fruits and vegetables?
I think that yes, because they're seeing other kids enjoy it. And the hardest part when a kid has never had a smoothie before is to get them to taste it. But when we do it in environments like Adventure, and they see other kids having it and they taste it one time, and that's the exciting part, to see that they really enjoy.
Karen Alexander Banks joins us. She is a CEO and founder of the Auntie Karen Foundation. It's a global nonprofit organization that uses the arts to help introduce young people to all types of things. It hosts several events and initiatives for children. We're talking today about childhood obesity, and one of Karen's characters, Gordon, who is an overweight Jamaican yam. Right? Is that correct?
Well, that's why I'm wearing my purple suit today.
Oh, okay. You representing Gordon. All right, now. So she's been telling us about the show and, of course, Gordon's Garden. Now, there are other puppets in the series that address other topics for kids. Tell us about the whole Jamaican Yam family.
Sure. We have Cousin Zeta, who happens to have sickle cell. We also have Whipper, and Whipper doesn't have any medical issues, but Whipper loves to tell tall tales. And so he's always getting into trouble for making up stories.
Right.
And then we have Whipper's parents, Yolanda and Yusuf, and they all have their own the restaurant called the Healthy Hut. And they're a part of the Jamaican Yams. We also have Olivia the Octopus, and she's my international jazz diva. Right. And her whole mission is compassionate care through hugs.
Awesome. So as you said, you have this whole line of puppets. Some of them are life-size. Some of them are hand puppets. Of course, you've got the television series, The Jamaican Yams, that feature all of these characters that, as you said, help young people with various types of things. Now, how can people access the Jamaican Yam series, Kay?
It's on knowitall.org, which is an ETP platform, and just put Auntie Karen in the search engine.
Awesome. Now, I know you had some other slides that you wanted to share with us. What?
Sure. If you'll put the slides back up. We have.
If you can go to the next one. Thank you, Charity.
Sure. That's Gordon's Discovery. That's a part of the Know It All platform, but there are also other segments there that you can watch. That's Gordon and I at the garden over at Adventure.
Awesome.
Gordon has a whole team, a posse, and that's Curtis and his son. They're part of the Gordon team.
Great.
And then Gordon also has a mindfulness series where we teach kids about the importance of healthy eating, smoothies, local farming, meal planning, and just having fun with nutrition.
Awesome. Awesome.
And he also has a free coloring book.
Wow. Wow. So this is really targeting kids of all ages, as young as 3 or 4, who would be interested in coloring.
Yes. So we've done projects. We've really targeted for pre-K through second, but we've worked with kids on up to high school.
Awesome. Awesome. Where can people, I know people can go to your website and find out more about the Jamaican Yams and Gordon's Garden, but do you have some, as we are preparing, I can't believe it, for school to start in just about a month, do you have some back to school events that Gordon will be appearing at?
Well, we just did Adventure. We have been asked to come back for the Countdown to Kindergarten event. So I have to make sure Gordon's in town for that.
Yeah. And that's at Adventure Children's Museum in Columbia, yes. South Carolina.
And then we're also available to come. I mean, you can call the Auntie Karen Foundation at 803-748-7124, and we make appearances.
Awesome. You see the information on the screen. If you are interested, and you should be, in Karen and her characters coming to your organization, your school, your preschool, and help your kids understand about childhood obesity, healthy eating, which is Gordon, and then the other Jamaican Yams. I know you'll help me, Karen. I know you've got Bull and Bear, which teach financial literacy. Olivia is Hugs. And Whipper is making sure you are honest in your conversation, and some of the other great things that Karen does. We'll bring Karen back a little bit later on. Of course, she also does with the Auntie Karen Foundation her Young Entrepreneur Series, which is October of every September.
In October.
Yeah,
we'll
October.
resume in 2023.
Okay, awesome. So that'll be next year. Great. Anything else that you've got coming up, Kay, that you want to share with us?
Just thank you, Trey, for allowing us to share our story on your platform. I really enjoyed listening to your previous guests, and I look forward to coming on again.
Awesome. I look forward to it too, Karen. Karen Alexander Banks with the Auntie Karen Foundation. Again, don't forget to contact her for more information on the Jamaican Yams featuring Gordon. Coming up next, Joy Price with DHEC Snap Ed Department shares how and what we can do to help prevent childhood obesity in our children. That's next on Wellness Wednesday from In It Together SC and the Diabetes Action Council on Coping with COVID. I'm Tre Tailor.
Hello, I'm Carolyn Sawyer, an entrepreneur and caregiver. Part of taking care of your health is knowing if you're at risk of type 2 diabetes. Prediabetes is serious and puts you at risk for developing type 2 diabetes. Up to 90% of South Carolinians who have it don't know they have it. Visit inittogethersc.org. Take an online test to find out your risk and join a diabetes prevention program. This message brought to you by the Diabetes Action Council of SC.
Computers, they're a part of our everyday lives. But when they're not working, they're an everyday problem. So call Computers Unique, your everyday solution. 803-351-5821. Is your computer running slow? Won't turn on? Do you need a screen replaced? Or maybe you just need another computer? Well, Computers Unique is your one-stop shop for all your computer needs. They have a wide variety of new and pre-owned PCs, Macs, and tablets. So call Computers Unique, Dutch Square Mall. 803-351-5821. 803-351-5821.
SC and the Diabetes Action Council present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID with Tre Tailor. I'm Tre Tailor. Hey, thank you again so much for joining us. Don't forget, we are streaming live on the In It Together Facebook page and YouTube channel. Please go over there. Don't only hit like and share so that you can follow In It Together SC on YouTube and on their Facebook channel. But also, they've got so much great information on how to find a diabetes prevention program, both in person and virtual, and all kind of healthy eating tips and more. Today, we are talking about childhood obesity. Joy Price joins us from the Snap Ed Department at DHEC to discuss what we can do as parents. But first, watch this.
Hey, fatty, stop eating.
I don't want to judge, but if you realize that you're becoming bigger and bigger, maybe you need to do something about it.
It's a mindset thing. You just have the right mindset and you can accomplish anything.
Do exercise. Zumba, for example, like me.
And I know, it's not politically correct, but...
Take responsibility.
I mean, they're not ugly, but...
Everyone has 20 minutes to do something.
Don't eat a burger every day, or, I don't know.
Just stop eating. It's that simple.
Okay, Bryce, just wanted to read from the teleprompter.
Right here?
Yep.
All right. I am here today to talk about something we have neglected for far too long. Why the SIBO?
Why the SIBO causes 2.8 million deaths every year.
It is heavily affected by our genes, the hormones, and the environment we live in.
And there is not a single country in the world that has reduced the number of people suffering from SIBO for over 30 years.
When you suffer from this disease, it impairs your body's normal functioning, and it is very hard to fix yourself.
Studies show that 40% of people living with SIBO experience judgment and humiliation,
making them feel ashamed and afraid to ask for help.
Today, about 650 million adults and 150 million children live with it.
Living with SIBO is a health issue, not a character flaw.
It is time to rethink what we know about obesity. Y'all could... Oh man, we talking about obesity?
Oh, it was back to front.
This is a joke.
I feel really bad. I technically body shamed him, kinda.
It's funny because we just judge, like without even thinking about it.
It's more than just a diet and exercise. It's a really serious disease. I'm sorry, guys.
How does that make you feel?
I feel bad. Like I'm part of the problem. They're sick. Like, they're sick, they're suffering, and I'm judging them and saying, oh, stop being lazy. Like, even my own brother. But I ain't know. Like, I really didn't know, man. Like,
Well, I think it's maybe important to rethink how we can help people.
Joy Price joins us from DHEC. Hey, Joy, thank you so much for joining us. That was a pretty interesting piece we found out there. So it really starts with us as parents.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the language starts with us. So we want to make sure that when we're getting to relate to our children, we want to make sure we have the language right and we have the understanding of the causes. So it went over the many causes of ETCBO or obesity, which is some genes in there, the environment for sure, as well as hormones. So sleep, stress, those are very hormone activities, and they move things throughout our body. And then on top of that, health in food and medication. So the things we intake and the energy it takes for output. So we want to make sure that we're having some type of activity, but we also want to make sure we're having nutritious foods.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about how to say it. I mean, we're not saying fat, we're not saying obese. What are we saying? What do we big boned? I mean, what are we even, because listen, when we're talking to our kids, one, we could be having a weight problem. And a lot of times a child has a weight problem because the parents have a weight problem. The child is making poor health eating choices because the parent is making, poor eating choices. And the big thing is bullying too. So what do you, I mean, there's so many things, that need to be discussed here, but what do we call it? What do we say to our children?
We go with people first. Your children are people, and they're tiny people, and they're going to grow up to be adults. So we want to use some language that puts them in the center of things. So when you say, hey, when you're speaking to another parent or you're speaking to the doctor about your child who's going to be right there, you want to say to the doctor, my child name has diabetes or has obesity. And you don't want to say they were obese or they are obese, like say, my obese child. You don't want to do that because that's not fully them. That limits their character. So you want to move on and you say things like, my child with obesity or my child who is in a large body.
Don't make it be them. My child is not obese. My child has something.
Right.
I got it.
Because it is a condition. And
like my child isn't bad. You're not a bad child. You're doing bad things. You're not your who. Look, girl, your who is not your do. I learned that from Joyce Meyer, but I digress. Go ahead. Yeah.
Hey, Joyce Meyer's and her conferences, they're very encouraging, empowering, very much so. And we want to empower our little ones.
Yeah.
The world we're going into now, we want to make sure that they are equipped. Yeah. And so even further to the point of empowering them, you want to also make sure that environment is there. So you want to dwindle down on certain stressors that you see your child encountering. If your child has a bully at school, or if your child at home is just not feeling like they can regulate themselves, you want to make sure that environment is there. And then on top of that, food environment. Some stressors like do I even have fresh fruits in the refrigerator?
Yeah.
Food deserts are very prevalent here in the South.
They are, Joy. They are. So I'm going to stop you there because there's so many things in what you said that I want to talk about.
Yeah.
One, food as a stressor or just stress in general. It's hard for us, I think, to recognize that kids are stressed too.
Kids get stressed. They're humans.
School is a stressor. As you say, bully could be a stressor. What's happening in my home? Is my mom there? Is my dad here? Am I being raised by my grandparents? All of those are stressors for children. And just like for us, we react with food through stress. We've got to wrap our heads around as adults that kids may too.
Right. So let's say like your child goes a whole day without eating because they didn't see something at school appealing to eat. So for one, you could address the school and the school food service, or you can provide something nutritious at home. But when you do provide something nutritious at home, they're going binging, and because they're thinking, when's my next meal when they're at school? And you don't want that. And even what if they don't have a meal at home? That environment is very key. And you want to make sure that there are measures there and resources there for them to have food at home when they transition from school, because school also is a food haven for a lot of kids who are homeless or houseless, and also a lot of kids who just, low income. We don't have the consistent income for consistent food in the home, consistent fruits and vegetables in the home. So we just want to make sure that there are resources both in school and at home.
Yeah. Joy Price joins us. She's with the Snap Ed Department at DHEC. You're watching Wellness Wednesday from In It Together SC and the Diabetes Action Council on Coping with COVID. I'm Tre Tailor. We're talking about childhood obesity. So Joy, how do we make the best food choices for kids? I mean, I'll tell you, and you have a little one and I have two, and they're 3 and 6 now. And while I think I'm a pretty clean eater, I'm a vegetarian. I don't make them vegetarians. They I'm cooking chicken right now for them, so, but we do eat veggie sausage so that I can have something to eat in the morning, and they like it. But anyway, but then they go to school and snacks are, and this is a whole nother conversation for me, because I really think schools should limit the sugar for the kids.
Yeah.
I hate that Fruit Loops are a snack for kids. I mean, but anyway, like I said, that's just a whole nother conversation.
Yep, it is a whole, I would like to talk about school food probably further on, but go ahead.
Girl. So how do we help our kids make the best food choices? And whether we are, let's take a couple of scenarios. The scenario of me and you maybe making the good choices for the kids, but then they go to school and they can eat whatever,
Yeah, and I have a little anecdote a little further on to tell you about school food. But one of the things that I feel works best for kids in general is make it accessible. Just as you said, you provide veggie sausage in the morning and they see you eat the veggie sausage in the morning. So they're mimicking your behaviors.
Yes.
And then even further to the point, hey, this is what we usually eat. And so they're eating it and they're eating it. So you do the behavior and they'll reflect it. And then even further to the point of making fruits and vegetables accessible, meal prepping. And I'm not talking about those cool meal prep gym videos where they're doing the same food every day. I'm just talking about cutting up some fruits and vegetables at the beginning of the week and making sure that each and every day you can grab and go. So those handheld plums, peaches, oranges, things like that, easy to assess and easy for kids to process and eat themselves. Because for one, I know parents don't have the time in the day I don't have the time in the day to cut up apple slices. Okay. Now, on Sundays and Saturday mornings, I have that time. So it takes no more than 30 minutes to prep those fruits and vegetables. And then also trying to get fresh fruits and vegetables is also a task at hand.
It is. It is. I mean, like you said, we live in a state, in a country, really, that has so many food deserts.
And food shortages.
So which makes it even more of a challenge to provide things that are healthy. So that brings me to this point then. In lieu of the fact that we often have a challenge with providing healthy choices, what are the healthiest choices in a convenience store or in a dollar store, where oftentimes that's more accessible than someplace that may have fresh produce?
Yeah. So I like to say, I don't like to say healthiest or anything to rank it, because I just need y'all to eat fruits and vegetables. You want to get those fruits and veggies in. But there are 3 ways you can get more fruits and veggies in. You have fresh, you have canned, and you have frozen. And so out of those 3, the fresh and the frozen, they're frozen and processed and whatnot at their peak nutrition. And then also when it comes to fresh, you have to keep in mind seasons. Certain vegetables are available through certain seasons. Citrus is winter. And then when you go into the spring and summer months, you have your plums and your stone fruits such as peaches, nectarines, and then strawberries also. So you have to make sure that with the fresh version, you're going to get things at the peak nutrition. And most of the time with frozen, you do. However, with frozen, the flavor is always messed up. And then with canned, you want to rinse off those excess salt or the excess sugar present. A lot of times in schools, they have, when they get their little fruit cups and whatnot, as much as back in the day, they used to have it in light syrup and whatnot. Now they're moving towards having things in fruit juices or no sugar added. And so they provide that to kids at school. But at home, that's a cheap way to provide fruits and vegetables, those little fruit cups. But also at the same time, you only get 6 in a pack. Now, if you get a 3-pound bag of oranges and clementines, and you go ahead and peel them up and soak them in something and put them in the fridge, that's on you, and that saves money for you. So,
right. So frozen is good. Frozen is a good option. Canned is a good option. Check your labels to make sure they're in either water or light syrup or fruit juice. And even with that, even if you can't find that, once you get them, rinse them off so that they're not sugary.
And drain them really well. So like canned beans, canned green beans, spinach, just rinse them off under some water for a few seconds, 10 to 15 seconds, and it will wash off some of that excess salt and excess sugar.
Right. In It Together SC and the Diabetes Action Council present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. I'm Tre Tailor. Joy Price joins us from the Snap Ed Department at DHEC. We're talking about childhood obesity, and Joy's been sharing with us the best way to make the right food choices for your children. What is you talked about time, and time is of essence. I tell you, that little 3-year-old in my house, we call her Slower Bell. Her name's Isabel. We call her Slower Bell. That thing is the slowest. She'll eat one bite, sing a little song, eat one bite, do a little dance. And I'm like, come on, let's go. So time is of the essence, especially in the morning when we're trying to get out of here. But so 3 out of the 5 days, I provide a hot breakfast, and that may be like this morning we had croissants, they had bacon and eggs. I didn't have any grits, and they don't like cream of wheat. I found that out last week. I love it, but whatever. I do love cream of wheat, little honey. They don't like it. But anyway, but I will opt at least 2 days for cereal because they like cereal. And you know,
it's time saving.
It is time saving, but how do we convince them, you know, not to eat, you know, or other than just don't buy it? I'll tell you what I did. I found one little trick for cornflakes, because they like Frosted Flakes, Tony the Tiger, they're great. But I will mix the Frosted Flakes with regular cornflakes, kind of like watering them down.
Yeah. So and then
but
they will, and they don't know the difference, but you do. Yeah. And the thing is, you can tell the difference in just how regular, in other words, they are. But nonetheless.
Oh, really? So what? Sugar? The amount of sugar affects your bowel movement?
Oh no, I'm talking about with the brand.
So, I got you.
So the different, like when you add the extra bran in there, make half of your grains whole grains,
right?
And that's what you're doing. And so with the mixing of the two, that's a good idea on, I guess, hiding the nutrients for certain things. So yeah, and then when it comes to time, I would say with kids, you kind of don't want to rush them through a meal. We've gotten to this practice nowadays to kind of, come on, eat up, make a happy plate. But you also have to wait for their tiny brains and their tiny stomachs to message the brain, hey, I'm full. Because now I will say my 2-year-old, he takes approximately 50 minutes at the table.
Good Lord.
And that's on a day when he likes the food.
The food, right.
And he has certain food jags. We went through 3 months period where he wasn't eating anything green. And so dealing with that and just constantly showing him the food, introducing it to him, and basically putting it on his plate, because that's what me and Daddy are eating. So you want to eat it too. And once he sees that, he goes forth, and after his little periods and his little things, he ends up eating it. But 9 times out of 10, it shouldn't take a kid longer than 30 minutes to finish a meal.
Right. But what about as far as if they've already been introduced to sugary cereals? Mm-hmm. How do you, what else? 2 questions. How do you try to wean them off of it? And I did make one suggestion. And again, as far as time, because putting cereal in a bowl and throwing some milk on it is quick. So what are some other things that could be quick? I don't know. It's Fruit Loops, it's Honey Nut Cheerios. It's just so many. Captain Crunch Berries,
Reese's Puffs. I love Reese's Puffs, but I call those dessert cereals. So
they are dessert cereals.
They're dessert cereals. I usually eat mine late at night as a midnight snack. But when it comes to those sugary sweetened cereals, we do want to kind of reduce the exposure of them. But we still, if it's going to bring them joy, if they want it one morning, they say, hey, I haven't had this in a while. Can I have this?
Right.
But if you offer them something that is a lot more nutritious at 1 out of those 2 days you give them a cold breakfast, then you're doing a great job. So it's all about, balance, because you don't want to deprive them of those little small joys, because one thing I will say, when you deprive kids of Lucky Charms, later on, probably 20 years from now, they're going to end up at a midnight breakfast and eating a whole bowl of Lucky Charms to win a couple of Rockstar energy drinks. It's a slippery slope. I'm just kidding. But nonetheless, like with sugary sweetened cereals, you don't want to deprive them, because eventually they'll end up binging on it later on.
Right.
So just half and half it.
Right. And basically what you're saying is, and you made a good point about this, kids are mimickers. So they eat what we eat. And parents, grandparents, those of us who are raising little ones,
Mhm.
one, you got to get them quick. You got to get them early, to get their palates used to things. And that's one thing I could say. My babies love water because they see me drink water.
Yes.
Other than they just started into Gatorade when somebody got sick. I think it was Isabel got sick and she wouldn't eat anything. Of course, we had to give her the Gatorade, but I'm getting the clear Gatorade, girl. We're not going with colors.
We're not doing that.
And then we get the no sugar Gatorade. But yeah, we've got to be conscientious, mom and dad, about what we're eating, because as Joy said, they eat what we eat. They're mimickers, and if we say they're gonna say so we've got to be more conscientious so that they can be more conscientious. And it's a family affair, don't you think, Joy?
It really is.
It's got to be a family affair,
and most food is. Food is a social activity as well. You talk during meals. We have whole holidays surrounded around meals.
Surrounding meals. Yeah.
Right. So, it's a social thing. So we want to also make sure that environment is still fun when they're eating. You don't want to put too much pressure.
All right. Joy Price joins us from the Snap Ed Department at SCDHEC. We've been talking about childhood obesity and how to talk to our kids, how to make sure they're eating the right choices, because we want what's best for our children. Far too many children, as we heard the doctor say in the last segment, have diabetes, childhood diabetes, and they should not have to suffer with that. They don't have to, but we've got to help them make the choice. We've got to craft their food their palates, so that they're making the right food choices, so that they recognize it's nothing wrong with it, and in the good thing about it, it's going to affect all of us at the house. Will be healthier. Don't you want to do that for your children, mom and dad? I know you do. Anything else, Joy, that you can share with us?
My last thing I just wanted to share was involving them in the prep of things. Just for sheer maintenance of stuff. When you introduce a behavior such as helping out in the kitchen, helping cut the vegetables, helping wash the vegetables, small things that could lead to big changes in their diet and big changes in their behavior. Because I washed this vegetable, the child's going to say, I prepared this vegetable, so I want to try what I prepared, So involve them in prep as much as possible, and to make sure to maintain that sense of interest in their foods, interest in fruits and vegetables. Because, we have all those kids who say yuck to spinach, but you know what? Spinach tastes good.
It does.
It even tastes good on pizza.
Yeah. All right. Joy Price with SCDHEC, the Snap Ed Department. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for all of the work you do to educate, motivate, and uplift children and adults of all ages. And we appreciate you so much for joining us on Wellness Wednesday.
No problem.
Coming up, more Wellness Wednesday from In It Together SC and the Diabetes Action Council on Coping with COVID with Tre Tailor. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Master Deputy Addie Perez with the Richland County Sheriff's Department Community Action Team. As a mother, I know it's important to take care of my health for those I care about. Part of doing that is knowing my risk for developing type 2 diabetes. So if I was you, I'll take the opportunity to visit inittogethersc.org and take an online test to find out if you have prediabetes. Again, the website is inittogethersc.org. This message is brought to you by the Diabetes Action Council of South Carolina.
Computers, they're a part of our everyday lives. But when they're not working, they're an everyday problem. So call Computers Unique, your everyday solution. 803-351-5821. Is your computer running slow? Won't turn on? Do you need a screen replaced? Or maybe you just need another computer? Well, Computers Unique is your one-stop shop for all your computer needs. They have a wide variety of new and pre-owned PCs, Macs, and tablets. So call Computers Unique, Dutch Square Mall. 803-351-5821. 803-351-5821.
Hey there. Thank you so much for joining us today for Wellness Wednesday from In It Together SC and the Diabetes Action Council. Listen, if you have a story or initiative that could help someone cope with COVID, please email booking@copingwithtretailor.com. Booking@copingwithtretailor.com. The email address is scrolling at the bottom of the screen. If you have a product or service that could help someone cope with COVID, please email copingwithtretailor@gmail.com. We would love for you to be a proud sponsor, just like Wellness Wednesday sponsor In It Together SC and the Diabetes Action Council. We're also sponsored by the 5th Circuit Solicitor's Office, Attorney Byron Gibson, Agape Counseling and Training Services, Black Pages, Black Expo, the Comet Bus System, Computers Unique, Dutch Square Mall, and Javis Tax Services. Hey, coming up tomorrow, we are talking about the vaccine for children. I'm going to talk to a pediatrician from Prisma Health about the vaccine, when you should get it, who should get it, and more. And then we've got more for you on Friday. Comedian T.P. Hearns is coming to Columbia, South Carolina. He's going to join us along with legendary comedian George Wallace, and we'll talk about life in the funny lane, their perspective on a funny perspective, I'm sure, on what's going on in the world today. That and so much more coming up this week and more on Coping with Tre Tailor. I'm going to leave you today with a reading from Jesus Calling. I'm back to reading that today. This one is today from July 13th. It says, and God says this, I want you to experience the riches of your salvation, the joy of being loved constantly and perfectly. You are loved even if you're single. You make a practice of judging yourself. Don't we do that based on how you look or behave or feel? If you like what you see in the mirror, you feel a bit more worthy of my love. When things are going smoothly and your performance seems adequate, you find it easier to believe you are my beloved child. When you feel discouraged, you tend to look inward so you can correct whatever is wrong. Instead of trying to fix yourself, fix your gaze on me, the lover of your soul. Rather than using your energy to judge yourself, redirect it to praising me. Remember that I see you clothed in my righteousness radiant in my perfect love. I'm about to cry because that is so good. Stop judging yourself. Stop beating yourself up. And remember that God loves you. Keep your eyes focused on him. We love you too. And thank you so much for watching us for our Wellness Wednesday from In It Together SC and the Diabetes Action Council. Until tomorrow, we wish you peace, abundant blessings. Take care, stay well. God bless. And if you're going to be out and about in a crowd, please don't forget to wear your mask over your nose and under your chin. We'll see you later.
Peace of mind to survive through whatever. Coping, learning the way that we thrive all together. Coping, finding out what's real. Coping, we can heal, we can heal, we can heal. Coping with stress, coping with strife, bringing hope for success, for improving our life. Coping beyond hoping to do more than survive. Ways to live a healthy life. Coping and promoting, learning what you can do. 6 ways to a better you.